If I had $1 for every time Serena was very clearly in the top performing girl group, but then somehow landed in the bottom 2, I'd have $2. And that's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Hi, hello everyone, my name is Jer, and the girls are fighting. The drama this week on UK versus the World is knee deep. We are talking about episode 4 of season 3 of Drag Race UK versus the World, girl groups from outer space. When season 18 had their girl group episode, I was expecting something kind of in line with this one. Something a bit more modern sounding, something that wasn't rooted in such an old reference.
Old maiden.
And the UK team wore me out. This is exactly what I wanted. The queens are tasked with separating into 2 rival girl groups led by Godlin and Fontana, who were the winners of the last challenge and lip sync respectively. They have to make their own choreography, write their own lyrics, pretty industry standard like we've seen for just about every girl group across history. But this time, the song is about loving an alien life form. And when they said, I'm in love with an alien, I thought it was gonna be a remix of the All Stars 5 I'm in Love song. So glad it wasn't. I really want a Rue season to get its pop-off ate treatment, even harken back to a Bing Bang Bong, because that was peak of Drag Race UK, but this was definitely closer to what I wanted to see. Along the way, there's tension between Fontana and Godlin, and later the UK alliance pretty much completely falls apart when Kate chooses not to save her UK sister Sminty. Gag. But I'm also not surprised. The writing's kind of been on the wall for a while that Kate has not totally been feeling the energy that both Zahira and Sminty are bringing. She seems to be a lot more aware of the other girls in the room and doesn't want to set a precedent that it's UK versus the world, that all of them are competing together. Her sensitivity to the others in the room and not wanting them to feel outcast, I think is probably a direct response to the way that the Globe felt about the RuPaul versus non-Ru girls in Global All-Stars, where it seemed like Alyssa, Kitty, and Queen were the ones who were favored and got all the special treatment in comparison to everyone else. I imagine that Kate probably doesn't want to have that same perception towards her, especially after the last UK versus the World where everyone said that Tia was just favored because she was a Ru girl. I'm sure that Kate is thinking about all these things and wants to try and maintain as many healthy relationships in the room as possible so that whatever that instinct is for Drag Race fans to get vicious on will maybe be a little more tempered. Shout out to the Ru Mail for referencing Tammy Brown. And with that, let's teleport us to Mars! Fontana was once again the main character this week and definitely was in my #1 position. The way that I'm gonna be talking about other girls is in the way that I ranked them. In my opinion, Fontana's girl group was the very clearly stronger one and probably should have just been judged all 4 of them high, Serena and Kate being maybe the weaker performers, but still strong. And Team Godlin was the clearly weaker team, with Godlin and Zahira being the higher of the 4. Fontana's safe placement later in this episode was most egregious to me because she had a lot of story flying behind her. She killed it in the challenge and on the runway, and I think a win would have put her back on that track that she's very fiercely been on. In the cold open, she is in a bit of a one-sided tiff with Godlin, being the opposite of J-Lo saying, let's not get loud. I think honestly Godlin just talks loudly. I don't think Godlin was trying to be any kind of way. Fontana was definitely in her feelings and made sure that her voice was known. Her track record is solid, and by a fairness standpoint, that should have saved her. But Godlin made a TV moment, and I don't blame her for it. It was a gag that Fontana had to lip sync. It sets up an interesting precedent as we go forward. Just because you've got a good track record doesn't mean that you are locked in to go to the next episode. I kind of with that because it was fierce TV. As the winner of the lip sync last week, she gets to be a team captain and she chooses Kate first, probably knowing that of everyone on the cast, Kate probably has the best rapport with Ru. Fontana could use that to her advantage at this point. As the cast is slimming down and every one of the point margins are coming down to 0.01, everything's tighter into the wire, so you want to align yourself with someone who kind of is on the production radar, so maybe that will rub off on you. At least that's how I would be thinking. During rehearsal, she was not letting those girls breathe at all, making sure to fill in every single beat with a dance move. And I think that's smart. create something memorable so that we as the audience will live, and maybe that will be impactful for Rue as well. But also it challenges these queens who all traditionally did not do well in their girl groups, or Rusical as far as Naomi is concerned, Fontana included. As the leader of the Wormholes, brilliant name for a sci-fi girl group by the way, because wormholes.
The booty hole.
She made sure to challenge them, but also to keep up with them, and she looked like a member of the group rather than just a choreographer. She was giving her energy to the tens, looking poised and elegant, but also a bit like Vanity Vane. I appreciated her star-shaped nipple covers because so often girls go on that stage and their nipples are exposed and they have nothing covering them. But I did hate those booty shorts. Otherwise, I thought her performance was the best of the night. But what really solidified her top position for me was You're a Star Baby runway, and the gasp that I gasped. I love, love, love this Galaxy Princess look. It's like a pop star princess performing at some type of galactic Eurovision or something. It's a blend to me of almost like Rosalina and something that you would see Queen Amidala wear. The swirling galaxy in the hair is both whimsical and elegant. It perfectly matches this stunning nude illusion bodysuit with the pops of the Tiffany blue. A kind of familiar color palette as we go through the rest of the runway, but I could bust. This is so perfect. And I say that as someone who generally is kind of bored with the Cinderella silhouette, the Cinderella thing. And you can kind of see that in those puff off the shoulder sleeves as well as the silhouette of the skirt. This was a complete and total slay in every sense of the word. I was quite honestly offended that she was not in the top position because this was a great week to give her another deserved win, especially after her runway was killer. The Only Naomi is in my second position. I loved her attitude this week. She is being severely underestimated, which I don't understand at all because she's had multiple top spots this competition, and she was extremely gracious and generous towards her castmates who are writing her off. Even though she was last picked, she was in great spirits about it, cracking jokes. She was very kind towards Sminty later on in the episode, where I don't feel like it was necessary for her to apologize, but she chose to be the bigger person and take accountability for what she did in making Sminty feel small. And in the girl group, Naomi said quite literally every word in the dictionary, I fear. She was extremely funny, she did the choreography well. I think she was super strong this week. And then for You're a Star Baby, ooh, this is so high fashion, which at this point I'm kind of not surprised about from Naomi and her package thus far. She's been bringing it to the runway every single week and I love to see it. Run, 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 runway. The illusion of that metalwork is fabulous on this sheer drape. This is low key what I wanted to see through I Can See Right Through Her, the most recent runway from 18. Michelle didn't like the headpiece because she said that it covered Naomi's face, but I don't personally mind that. When we've seen enough of someone's mug, I think it's okay to do something a little more avant-garde at one point and maybe cover up a part of your face or do an exaggerated headpiece. It's not like this is episode 1 or something and we haven't gotten to know her at all. We've had 4 episodes. She's been very strong up until now, but so has Sminty up until this point and she just left today, so I'm worried what that means for Naomi. Also, considering that the girls are underestimating her so badly, I'm worried that if she ends up in bottom 3, they won't bother to save her because they don't seem to feature her very much this season. And that troubles me because I really like her. Serena had a big story this week going from the underdog player with a lot of fire to being the one who has to lip sync. Sort of the opposite effect of what we saw with Mikey Meeks, where Mikey comes in kind of upset that she was in the bottom and that fire leads her to a victory. Whereas Serena just came in and had a great attitude all episode and that didn't assist her in any way. If I had $1 for every time that Serena Morena was very clearly in the top performing girl group, but ended up in the bottom 2 somehow, I would have $2. And that's not a lot of money, but it's weird that it's happened twice. I don't care if her cartwheel was crunchy. Michelle calling it a shart wheel was wild, but not inaccurate. I liked her energy throughout the week and in the challenge. I think she was pulling comedy faces, she knew her choreography and lyrics well, she had a very fun presence in the group, and I just love that Serena has this resilience and positivity to her no matter what comes her way. She's always just excited to be on Drag Race, even when she's being harshly critiqued or being underestimated or not being appreciated for what she's bringing. A lot of people online are saying, why is Serena still here? It's because she brings something to Drag Race that often doesn't get recognized, and that's having a great attitude. A lot of girls go on the show and are just so focused on the competition, and there's nothing wrong with that, but Serena's just there to have fun and show off drag, and Isn't that what we're all kind of there for? To see drag? The judges are not feeling her very much, the queens are not feeling her very much. I'm sure she understands that her time is coming, and so she's just having a good time with it until whenever that ends. For your star baby, Serena is looking surreal. How dare she be so gorgeous? I like that this is not a traditional 5-point star, it's a multi, and even though it's a familiar color palette to others in the room, I think it's a bold color and it complements her complexion well. She looks like she came from the same collection as Fontana and some of the others, and for that I like the cohesion. Beyond the fact that it's just a beautiful look, and that mug is muggy. The runway is a complete and total slay. She does unfortunately have to lip sync to I Heard a Rumor by Bananarama, and she worked it out and made Rue laugh, and that's really all that matters. When she pulled that flag out of her wig, I cackled. I think it's hilarious that Serena's first language is not English, but she knew every single one of those lyrics and were chomping down on them. Serena is such a bright talent in this group, and even though I know that her time is probably coming soon, I'm looking forward to seeing whatever else we can from her until then. And I'm very glad that she'll be with us next week. Kate Butch is in my 4th position, and I know a lot of people are saying that they thought Kate was the best in the girl group. I think all of them were very equal in what they brought to the lip sync and to the performance. They all kept up well with each other. What really came down to scores for me were the runway, as well as some aesthetic choices. She had a big emotional story this week talking about being this sort of outcasted nerd as a young kid, not feeling like she had a place within her community, feeling othered, but finding a space within sci-fi. As someone who also felt very othered and found a place within Star Trek and Star Wars, these fantasy worlds where it felt like I had a place to exist in them and it didn't matter that I was different, this futuristic world had space for me in it. There's something very healing about sci-fi for people who are othered, and I resonated with Kate's story and I enjoyed her narrative this week. That being said, I think her performance in the girl group was strong. I loved her line, "No Luke, I am your mother." She had some great pun names for the girl group while they were still in the process of figuring out what they were gonna call it, and I loved everything she was throwing out. I understood all the references. But when it came to aesthetics in that girl group, I think maybe she was the weakest, and that does count for something for me. The extra hands in the back were a bit stubby, they looked like sausages. But she was funny, and that really is all that matters when you're in front of Rue. And for You're a Star Baby, she is inspired by a galactic red carpet event. I like the volume and color of the skirt. It's very much in line with the color palette of everyone else in the team, so I love that. They all look like they came from the same kind of collection. I enjoy the soft plating of that organza. Those soft lace details underneath it are interesting to look at. The fountain spraying effect of the headpiece and bust are interesting concepts, and I think they make sense for the space theme. There is a but though. I personally find the skirt length a bit awkward. It's red carpet, but this gown doesn't hit the floor. To me, it looks like this garment was originally made to be ankle length, but that's not quite high fashion in the setting that this is supposed to be in. So it looks like it was pulled down to accommodate, but then that puts the breasts at kind of an awkward position because Kate didn't really pad to an extreme. Either that or because of this fountain spray effect, it weighs it down and so it doesn't sit where it's supposed to. Maybe it needed some clear straps to keep it up higher. I think this kind of awkward length would work fine enough if it was split right down the middle to be almost more showgirly, or perhaps it just needed a few more yardage of length at the bottom just to fluff it out. It's a soft slay, make no doubt. I like this. There's just some technical details that pulled her overall lower on the scoreboard for me. Kate is the winner of the challenge this week, and I found it interesting that they retained a cut of the judges having to double check their notes to even remember what her lyrics were in the challenge. I felt like that sort of undercut her win generally. Whenever someone gets a win, they do their best in editing to show only the positive, the thing that supports them winning, so that we as the audience don't see any of the maybe faults that happened along the way, or at least they try to do that. And for whatever reason, they included this bit. Maybe they thought it was really hilarious that these two judges didn't know what the lyrics were, and then Rue remembered, when Rue has kind of a terrible memory when it comes to a lot of these queens and things that they do and did. But I don't know, I felt like it diluted a bit of her victory. And she gets to choose with the Chippy T to save either Sminty, Mariah, or Serena. And it seemed pretty obvious to me what was about to happen. Mariah has already brought up a couple of times the idea of an alliance with Kate, wanting to solidify their position in the competition together, that they'll have each other's backs, which I think more benefits Mariah than it does Kate in this situation. But regardless, effortless. They've developed a rapport with each other. Whereas Kate has made it very clear that she thinks that Sminty has been burning bridges in the room, and she probably doesn't want to associate herself very closely with Sminty for fear that the other girls will think that she's got the same mentality. Kate's been super neutral anytime that Sminty has gone on the attack mode with some of the other girls and started reading them. And I think that is all for the optics of making sure that she doesn't stand out. She wants to keep everything as copacetic as possible, and I think she's accomplishing that. And so I think it was between Serena and Mariah to get the Chippy Tea, but Serena already got it last week and ended up in the bottom again. So she probably, for consistency purposes, wanted to give it to Mariah. And it also didn't help that Sminty was not fighting for herself at all, just said, "Save me." Closed mouths don't get filled, and that applies to a lot of situations. If you want something, sometimes you have to beg for it. This is absolutely going to cause some tension next week with Zahira, mark my words. We already saw a little bit of that coming out in the next up. But it begs the question, was there ever a UK alliance to begin with? It started and fizzled out almost immediately, and when it picked back up, it seemed like it wasn't going anywhere. I think really only Sminty and Zahira had each other's backs, and Kate was always going to do whatever benefited the room long term. I don't even think that Kate is thinking about herself in this situation, because when she's standing in the back and says, "Was that the wrong decision?" she's thinking about what everybody else wants. That moment is not her thinking selfishly. It's thinking, well, the room probably doesn't want Sminty here because she's a little bit of an incendiary character this year, so let's see what she does if she's in the bottom. And some of the girls reacting so poorly to that decision made Kate then wonder, maybe I shouldn't have saved Mariah. Maybe they want her gone. Zahira and Godlin losing their ish sent me to the moon. And since Kate was the lowest score for me among the wormholes, I think that she should have just been safe, along with the person who I think was the highest of the very clearly bottom group, and that is Godlin. Godlin is the second team captain, and she chose Zahira, Sminty, and Mariah for her team. 3 girls who all struggled in their girl group challenges. And our resident walking Drag Race wiki, Zahira, knew all of the stats for Mariah's All-Stars 5 run. Godlin dog-walked this challenge, as I was sort of expecting her to do. When she said she didn't do well in Sip Sip Sip, she was a damn liar and trying to make those girls feel better, because Godlin, if I'm not mistaken, was safe that challenge, and I remember really liking her performance. Their group calls themselves the Dollograms. They weren't bad per se, but they also weren't strong either. I liked Godlin's line, "You can shoot your DNA inside my little Milky Way." It's bananas and I'm obsessed. It's such a parallel line to her line in Sip Sip Sip, "Can make you fun without a hand." This girlie loves some nut, and I love that for her. For You're a Star Baby, she was inspired by Elton John, and as the only queen to not utilize white or blue as the primary color palette, I was extremely happy that she stood out on this runway. The look is striking and magical. I love the scale of those assorted star shapes that add not only a lot of volume, but variety to the look. It is a complete and total slay. Zahira is in my 6th position this week, sadly, and I think it's really only by virtue of being on the weaker team. And I don't think that Serena should have been up for elimination because her runway was so good and she was on the better team. Even if her cartwheel wasn't great, was a bad cartwheel enough to put her in the bottom? That seems kind of shaky to me. Especially when Lawrence got a win in Bing Bang Bong and was objectively the worst in that group. These things matter until they don't, and I really just don't think that this week should have been judged as individuals. Zahira follows through exactly on what she said she was going to do in week 1, aligning herself with the strongest player in the room and using them, so to speak, to snipe out the weaker ones. By aligning herself with Godlin, I think they do genuinely have a bond and a friendship, but it also meets up with her goals of wanting to be paired up with whoever the strongest player in the game is, and that's very clearly Godlin. And I think this will benefit Zahira in the same way that I think Mariah will benefit by hitching her cart to Kate's horse. In the girl group, I love Zahira in red hair. I think her aesthetic choice was fantastic, but I fear her segment was maybe a bit too short for how many words she tried to cram in them. She was really the only one in this group who kept up with Godlin. For You're a Star Baby, I like how avant-garde it is compared to everything else that we've seen so far, but it doesn't quite hit the same way that her other looks have. I like the koi fish, but it's lacking a bit of texture for me. I think it is just a pretty simplistic look. It's not bad, so it's a super soft slay. I think the bar is just so high that it's impossible to not compare her to the bar she's already set. Sminty had a rough story this week. She is in my number 7 position. I think her frustration about not breaking through finally got the best of her, and she's been way too flammable this season in the workroom. We saw her struggle in the rehearsal process, we saw her snap at the queens again, and during the challenge, I noticed her looking around a couple times almost to double check if their blocking was correct and if she was in the right position at all. It was almost like she was doubting. I did like her alien reference with face hugger between the thighs. That is my favorite sci-fi horror, so I enjoyed that it was brought up. It makes me want a drag alien acting challenge. I think that would be hilarious. But they can't even use the name Sigourney Beaver because that's already being used. I guess you can't do that. Michelle said that her energy with Mariah was weekend at Bernie's. I knew this girl was cooked from that moment. For You're a Star Baby, her look was giving me Yassified Shadow the Hedgehog. I'm sorry, it was Yassified Shadow in a pinstripe coat dress. Pete Burns was referenced later and I can totally see that, but the headpiece is giving me Shadow. I enjoyed the tailored jacket and the gold pops excellently on it. She looks beautiful, sans the headpiece, so it is a slay. And during the lip sync, she was Pluxzilla'd. She looked over it, she looked done. She probably felt betrayed, especially after hearing Kate say, person that she's saving is the one that she would miss their presence in the workroom next week. I would think, so you wouldn't miss me if I wasn't here. That sucks. I don't want to be here. I thought you were my sister. I thought you would have my back, and then you pull that. Sminty was super sexy in her movements, but kept losing the lip sync a lot, and this is her first language. I brought up Serena not having English as her first language earlier because she chomped all those words, she knew what they were. Sminty speaks English and didn't know these words. Going home at this stage was not on my vision board for Sminty, but at all, but it makes sense considering that she's been sort of distracted the last several weeks, and honestly I think she got in her own way. Saying that she was slightly venomous towards Kate was a massive understatement, but I gotta say that even though she was an early out queen, I think she made big strides from her original season. She had a great run this time. It was short but impactful. I will miss the drama that Sminty brings because I think she is a force and she brings great TV, but I'm not surprised that she's out here. And in my last position, unfortunately, is Mariah. She was pretty much a background player this whole week except for her conversation with Kate about alliances. She got a pass for not doing the choreography very well, and she sort of faded into the background with the lines, but that wasn't really much of a discussion point. These things matter until they don't. I think she sounded amazing in the girl group, and I love that silver look, but Mariah kept losing the lyrics in the song, and a lot of the tricks that she was doing were crunchy. They were very hard on Serena for having a crunchy cartwheel, but then sort of just laughed off that Mariah got stuck on the ground and couldn't get back up. I think she was the clear weakest in this group. She probably should have been lip syncing, but I'm at the same time not upset that she's still here. I like Mariah. She's a walking soundbite. She's got a great attitude, and I think it's very nice to have this grounding older presence in the room who comes from a different era of drag that is a little more IDGAF about the whole process of it. They're there to entertain and have fun. They're not thinking about all the TV, not like a lot of the new school queens are. It's hard because I like Mariah and I want to see more of her because I genuinely enjoy her, but also she's definitely underperforming this season. And for You're a Star Baby, she's wearing an upcycled gown, which basically translates to I already had this. She said her wig was giving Miranda Priestley, but I was just getting Golden Girls and I didn't like it with the garment. This is a styling issue that maybe if it was slicked a little bit more, maybe it would have looked more high fashion and couture. I also just don't love that Quicksilver armor-like piece over the pearl. I think it needed a bit more of a vibrant color to pop on this runway, and maybe that would have been more effective. It's not a slay, it's not a chop, it's sort of just here. She clocked in. This week it was super clear to me that they wanted to create a viable other player for the crown because up until this episode, Godlin is just sweeping. And I think Fontana is very clearly another big presence to try and get that crown. Of the UK queens, and one is definitely going to go to the finale, Kate has to be the one that they send. Zahira and Sminty have been causing a little bit of friction, and the UK doesn't often reward the sort of viperous characters. Not that I think they are, but I think that's the edit they're getting. And they probably didn't want to give Fontana another win because then when would they give an opportunity to Kate? Considering that next week is an acting challenge, I feel like there will be completely justifiable opportunity to give Kate a win because I'm certain that she will do well in it. But I think for story purposes, linking in with her love of sci-fi and her connection with it, this was a good week for her to get it. And the challenge next week is going to be an acting challenge. Woof. However, parameters are that it's a silent film, and I hope that it's actually silent and they can rely more on physical comedy and more on reactions, because reactions and physical comedy don't require any type of English comprehension. You can fully lean into whatever you think is funny, and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you can adjust. It's not like you need to have a comprehension of English to be able to convey whatever you're saying. And this is something that I've complained with Versus the World before. These acting challenges are oftentimes harmful to the ESL queens. They can't keep up in the same way. And that's why I like the Snatch Game pageant, because they were all in control of their own destiny. They didn't have to rely on each other. And so we'll see what's going to happen with that challenge. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I don't often look forward to acting challenges. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what drama happens between Zahira and Kate, because that is absolutely gonna hit the fan, and it's gonna be a mess. I do worry that Zahira's frustration about her placement might snipe her out in the same way that it got Sminty. Oftentimes we see girls that are frustrated that they're not breaking through get so overwhelmed with needing to stand out that they just get in their own way. They squabble this opportunity. What did you think about the episode? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you to my Extravaganza Extra members for supporting this page. If you'd like to check that out, it is down below where it says join. Remember to like the video. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.